Hello everyone, welcome to yet another video. This video is mainly about side decking and side decking patterns. Before we get into it, I would like to thank everyone for all the support on the Fairy Tale Magistus video. It really motivates me to make even more content. Happy to see people are enjoying it. Anyways, I made a tier list one day before the ban list, so yeah, I had to redo the recording. That is why all of the cards are already there. Same story as every tier list, but I will not be going over all of the cards since there are a lot of videos based on a non-engine for the Blazing Dominion format. Instead, I will go over a couple of them and then jump right into the side deck patterns and theory. So let's hop right into it. First, let's start off with the You Coulda Guessed tier, where we can see the Bestials here. Why they're here is I think you should only really be main decking them, and you should only really be main decking them when you can use them as extenders in your own deck. They are pretty good interruptions, and Bestial Magnemute could search for Joyless Harmonia, which is really good, but I feel like on their own they don't really interrupt many decks, they are just really good against Mitsurugi. So yeah, you could play other cards instead of those. Then we have Contact Sea and Retaliating Sea. Retaliating Sea is a very overrated card. I think I should even put it down to the bottom, because since Dracotil is not a deck anymore, I feel like this card will see no play, except maybe against Sky Strikers. So Contact Sea, pretty good against Q-Tune and Doomsday, but I feel like there are other stronger cards against them. Now for Gamma and Delta, I feel like these cards are pretty big blowouts, but I feel like most of the time when you are going first, they are unplayable, and also you have to main deck a brick to be able to even use them in the first place. That is why I'm not a big fan of the cards, except maybe when you play Q-Tune, but even then I don't really love them. Then we have Thrust and Talents, which people would maybe want to always main deck. I know a lot of people love Talent, but I feel like it's a sacky one of that sometimes doesn't even come up because your opponent does not activate an effect in your turn when you're going first. So I feel like you could be playing a consistency card instead. And for Thrust, I only feel like it's really good against, or well, not against, inside of Sky Striker. Then for the side and slash or main deckable, we have Joel, Fubalos, Eclipse, Ogre, and Purlia, and this is actually one of the tiers I think are the most important in the tier list, because these you can either side or main deck depending on what you're already playing. So for example, if you're playing the Quick Play package, which consists of Radiant Typhoon Vision, for example Super Poly and Droplet, you should definitely also be considering to main deck or side deck Book of Eclipse, since it's a really good card against Q-Tune. Then now, because Dracotil is gone, I feel like Ghost Ogre actually hits a lot of decks. For example, it's pretty decent when Q-Tune only has the field spell as an option, so if you Ogre their field spell, they can actually not play. Also, Doomsday has an card that equips a spell card from the deck, then uses itself if it has an equip spell to XYZ summon. If you Ogre that, that hurts them a lot. And for the Charmies, if you're playing board breakers, you should be main decking these, but I feel like also at the same time when you go first, I feel like these cards are absolutely dead, unless you just pass with an empty board, which I don't think is very strong in Yu-Gi-Oh! And also now Dracotil is gone, Joel and Logbird will be an extremely strong deck, being pretty good against Doomsday, also against Magistus Fairy Tale, so you should definitely consider main decking this card. Also, again, Sky Striker and Mitsurugi being the beasts they are, I think this card kills them pretty badly. For the should play inside deck, I think I will go over only these two really. These two cards are you should only play if they're searchable. Same for Santa Claus actually, because Magistus Fairy Tale, for example, can search these with Cosmo Queen, and Santa Claus can be searched with Fiendsmith's Tract. So should play in main, I think these cards you should only be maining if you really can. For example, Vision, you should only be main decking if you're playing a quick play package. So for example, Fallen and Virtus, Super Poly, Crown, and Droplet. Only then you should be main decking Fallen and Virtus. That's also why it's a little bit to the right of the tier list, because of course, as just like in every tier list, the cards on the left are the better cards you should prioritize, and the more to the right and down you go, the worse the cards gets. But of course, all of these cards are pretty good. Then, let's see, is there any card worth going over? I feel like Joyless Harmonia is a little bit overrated, but don't get me wrong, it's still an awesome card. Yeah, I think that is it for the tier list. Let's jump right into the theory and side decking patterns. So yeah, this is my recent top 14 regionals list, where many good players played, such as players from Team Jim, Rico Carlos, and even Joshua Schmidt himself. I will take this list as an example because I put a lot of time and effort into making the side deck, and of course the theory of side decking is very abstract, but these theories really helped me with my top 32 at Dutch Nats 2025 and my recent regional top 14. Post Blazing Dominion, you would probably want to play around 12 to 15 non-engine slots. These can be board breakers or hand traps. It really depends on what you are building. For example, if your deck draws a lot, my deck, for example, Malice, draws a lot with Heat Soul, draws a lot with Allure of Darkness, and draws a lot with Chessy Cat. As you can see, that kind of adds to my interruptions, because if I draw non-engines such as Nibiru, such as Imperm, such as Impulse, I feel like my interruptions slash end board is stronger. This is why I'm playing a little bit more heavy non-engine. If your deck doesn't draw a lot, you should be playing a little bit less hand traps, or you should be playing board breakers instead. That is also the main reason why I am not main decking the Charmies, because when going first, the Charmies are absolutely useless and I will most likely draw into them because I am playing a lot of cards that could potentially draw into them, as mentioned again, Heat Soul, Allure, and Chessy Cat. While editing this video, I have noticed that I forgot to mention one thing. There's one more thing that really decides if you're going to play more or less non-engine, and that is if your deck consists out of a lot of one-card starters and potentially also a lot of extenders. If your deck doesn't play a lot of one-card starters, you should also play less non-engine. The more one-card starters you play, the more non-engine you can fit in. So now for the 2 of theory slash ratio theory. I actually used to be a firm hater of 2-ofs. I didn't understand why people were playing them, but I actually found out why. Because usually when going second, you are of course siding out the cards that are less impactful against the deck you're playing against. And also you want to go a little bit actually less heavy on the engine. What I mean by this, for example, you're playing against a deck that special summons from deck a lot, but somehow makes Omni Negate before you can nib them. What you do is, of course, you would like to play less nib and more Fuvalos. But as we can see, we need to side out one more card. Well, again, just as I said, Fuvalos going second in hand will draw you into engine most of the time anyways. So you can go a little bit less heavy on the engine or cards that don't really get you started. For example, March Hare. In this case, it's March Hare, but it applies to any other deck. If you have a card that doesn't really get you going, or you don't want to see in your hand alone, and if you're playing it more than just once, you should definitely remove a copy. This is because, again, you may draw into it with Fuva anyways, and also, you would like to see another piece more anyways. For example, I would like to see a Dormouse or Underground rather than a March Hare in hand. So just another quick editor's note, when I was referring to remove one March Hare for another non-engine piece, it was only when going second. Also, if you're playing against a deck where Nibiru is bad against that deck, and the rest of your side deck is also bad against the deck, you should just keep in the nib. So next up is the floodgate theory. As sad as it sounds, the decks that can play floodgates the best are usually some of the strongest decks in the format. So Malice, for example, can play Shifter, which actually kills a lot of decks and sometimes even helps Malice. It can also side deck cards such as Fissure and Mistaken Arrest, which Mistaken Arrest, if you have already searched once in Malice, you do not really care about your future searches. Same for Dimensional Fissure, is really strong against other decks, but Malice doesn't really care. As obvious as this sounds, do not play cards that conflict with your own engine. Even if they kill the strongest decks in the format, do not do this. For example, Magistus Fairy Tail. Do not main deck Shifter in Magistus Fairy Tail. Yes, it hurts the opponent, but usually your half boards are actually weaker than your opponent's half boards under Shifter, and also some decks really don't care about Shifter, for example, Mitsurugi. So do not be doing this. So last but not least, your deck really needs to be prepared for the strongest deck in the format. For example, last format it used to be Dracotail, which is why I am side decking or main decking cards as Dominus Impulse, Imperm against Arthalion, and then Ash Blossom and Ghostbell against the traps, so I go 1 for 1. Of course, I'm also siding a card that is very strong against Dracotail, that being Retaliating Sea, to even have stronger blowout cards to increase my chance of winning. So the main reason why I'm playing 3 Retaliating Seas in the side, in the Dracotail format, it was because it didn't hit enough decks. It only really hit Dracotail and Sky Striker, so that is why I didn't main deck it. And you should take this with you, because for example, let's take Contacts C as an example. It is good against the strongest deck, it being Q-Tune. Let's say this card blew out Q-Tune, which is not the case, but let's say it did. It's still a card you wouldn't main deck, because if you go to an event, you cannot guarantee that you will constantly be playing against Q-Tune. Also, another thing that I maybe forgot to mention precisely is, for example, the 2-ofs in this deck, all of the 2-ofs, are either a little bit lackluster against the best decks, or are a little bit too specific. That is why people also make the tier lists, so you know what to side and / or main deck. But at the end of the day, it is whatever works best for you. If you feel better with playing 2 Ash and 3 Bell, or if you don't feel comfortable playing them at all, at the end of the day, it's up to you. You make your own build, you do what feels better for you. But of course, at the end of the day, I feel like my theories still apply, they still exist. Take them as you will. For me, they have worked very well. Make sure to try them out. And if you actually have tips yourself for the comment section or even for me, make sure to write them down. I will definitely try them out. And yeah, thank you for watching, and let me know what you thought of the video. Goodbye, guys.